Okay, so nothing like going live and then coming on screen.
Yeah, come
Hello,
on in. Good morning.
everyone. This is Heather coming to you live from the new Get Me Some Green location at 3555-1, which was like
a little fun on the navigation.
3519 was like super cool. Now I'm 3555-1 476289 Matthews, North Carolina, or Mint Hill, depending on who you asked, and which is also confusing, but we are in the same shopping plaza. This is our flagship store, and this is our flagship guest, Ken Newbill, and we are happy to say that we are actually live. I can touch him. We are not on Zoom. People. We're touching each other. It's a thing. Remember hugs? They exist in the world still.
I'm still hugging.
Still hugging. Still hugging. And today, I'm excited to bring him here live. We will start coming back to you every month on the third Saturday with different topics, talking about health and wellness, and trying to teach you to be your own health advocate, because your tagline is
wellness is within.
Wellness is within.
You got this.
So,
it's already there.
It is. So I know you guys haven't seen me on camera in a long, long time, and there's a little bit less of me to see. And the reason is I have been working with Ken. So not only do we try to use all the products in our store, but we do use our vendors as well, and the doctors and the clinicians that we partner with as well. It's really important because I can't talk to you about your health if I haven't walked the same shoes, and that's really what this whole store is about educating you on the paths that we've walked and helping you on your journey as well. So without further ado, today, Ken, what is our topic?
Well, our topic is living a facet-focused future, but before we do that, I just gotta take a moment, okay? You've done so amazing. Okay, so I got to share this, guys, with you. So just so you know who's in front of you, this is a juggernaut warrior of a person, okay? So I've been working with Heather for a while, but she's, if you're thinking of a gladiator, if you're thinking of, you know, a titan, it's in her, because she has gone through a lot in her life, and I know there's others like you out there who have as well. But there's something about getting well, and why I'm a little different than a lot of other practitioners out there is I'm kind of hardcore in terms of understanding that health is not easy to get through, and there's lots of, you know, kind of like, what do you say, I call them like tampon commercial kind of commercials for health coaches and stuff. They're like people running through fields and there's flowers and all good things are going to happen. I'm not that person at all. I'm not a gloom and doom guy either. I'm just more of it's a mountain and it sucks to go up mountains. Okay, and sometimes your mountain might be real muddy and it's raining and you're taking 3 steps back to get 1 step forward, and that can be part of your health journey sometimes. So at some point along your travel and your journey, you're gonna have to dig deep to get what you want. She's digging deep, and I just want to acknowledge her for doing that, because
it's necessary.
Awesome.
I think especially now, and it's not coincidental I went through this journey this year. It's just not. There's a lot happening in our world, and it's out of our control. For the first time in your life, what is happening around you is truly out of your control. So it was a good time for me, because just like everyone else who's watching, everyone who's going to watch this in the future, it's 2020. Enough said. 2020 used to mean hindsight is clear. 2020 used to mean clarity. And in some ways, 2020 this year also means clarity, but not in the way you were expecting it to be. It didn't come to us the way that we were anticipating it to come. So I think everyone is going through a transformational journey, whether that's your health, whether that's your work, whether that's your emotions, whether that's your family life. I just decided to embrace it wholeheartedly and say, I can't stop it. I'm just going to surrender to that change, and now's the time to dive deep on me. But my journey actually started with a wellness scan that we do here for Candida. So this journey with Ken started on this innocent path of, hey, my tongue's white. That's how it started. But your body gives you these warning signs, and we ignore them very frequently. So for me, it started with the white tongue. Most of us have it and don't even realize. We just brush our tongue and go about our day. But that's actually bacteria, guys. It's actually a fungus growing in your mouth. So, and I'm not saying that to gross you out. There are bacteria that grow in our body that we definitely need.
All over us all the time.
But that's how this journey started. And through that process of, first we peeled away that layer, and it's like, oh, well, hold on a second. Then there's this layer, and then there's this layer. And it sounds scary, but it's so amazingly refreshing because you're like, wow, I feel good after this layer. Wait, there's another one. What if I heal this layer, how much better am I gonna feel? Oh my gosh. And then you find yourself like a page turner, like, what else can this body do? And that's how I got to this journey. So, and at some point soon, I'm gonna document the whole process. Ken and I tried to document it as I went, but that's not the best way to go. I needed to share the whole story at one time with you guys. So that's actually gonna be coming. We're gonna go through that entire journey. But today, we're gonna talk about fasting.
Yes, fasting. And I don't know, depending on where you get your, where you digest health information from, you may be seeing all types of information on fasting, and it's gained in popularity in the West in the last 5 years. It's really kind of gained some steam. Some of that is good, and some of it's been bad, as well as some people don't recognize all the intricacies that can go into fasting. Something as simple as people think is to stop eating. Right.
Well, and think about religions too. There's a lot of religions that fast, and
I don't think without religions fasting would even
have
have any efficacy to the public without religion. Because if you just said fasting and there was no religious context to it, that's where you find it.
Yeah.
That's where all the information leads back to.
Starts, and it's funny because I'm actually in a fast right now, but this is my second type of fast through Ken. There's different kinds of fasts, and we'll talk about that. But one of the things is, while I was fasting, I had profound experiences feeling closer to God, to Source, to my universal power. So I think, are we going to have time to dive in a little bit today?
We have
too? Because it's really, really important to understand that.
I think we should start there.
Okay, let's start.
Let's start.
Fasting isn't about
let's talk
diet.
first. What is fasting, and why should you? So, what is fasting? Well, I'm going to tell you what it's not. It's not starving.
It's not a diet.
Okay, it's not a diet, because you see, a fasting diet. No, that's not a diet, and then it's not starving.
No.
There's different processes that happen at the cellular level in the body. A lot of interesting things happen.
Eliminated.
Well,
fasting is eliminated.
I think it's more of accessing a different source of nutrition.
Okay.
So most of us tend to always look to get all of our nutrition via our mouth, which is complex. It creates complexity. When we are only taking in prana, which is just the energy field of the earth.
Not a hippie word. That's actually
this is real.
the word. So
you can look this stuff up.
I have to say this because I was talking to someone about prana and Gaia and about a couple things, and they're like, "Oh, you're using hippie words." Understand that the English language
Where's my tie-dye
literally doesn't. Hold on, I got one for you. This is a CBD store after all. But the English language literally doesn't have words for certain energies that ancient languages had. So when we say prana, it's so much more than just the energy of the earth. It's the energy of all living things. And there isn't actually scientific proof talking about the frequency of all things having it. So when we say prana, we're not using a hippie word. We're literally using a word that just simply doesn't exist in the English language.
Correct.
Just put that out there for.
I guess the closest thing you could think of is hot atoms vibrate.
Yeah, and that doesn't sound as fun as prana.
Yeah, not fun. But understand that you have many ways to take in nutrients. And oftentimes we don't recognize that as humans because we just tend to be so heavily focused on food. And there's lots of ways to create energy for the body outside of just food. And so fasting is a way that you can do that. You can create energy from going through a fasting experience. And then there's...
Look at the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you feel better when you sit in the sun and just kind of soak up those rays? You're not consuming anything. You're not physically drinking, but your body's drinking in that prana, that energy from the sun. So if you're in doubt about some of the things we're saying, don't you feel better when you're in a swimming pool? Don't you feel better when you're in the sunlight? Don't you feel better when you are barefoot in the grass? There's a reason.
Don't you feel better when you walk away from a city and walk into a woodline?
That you're picking up on those energy frequencies, and we're not talking like, again, energy, woo, we're talking actual biological, measurable frequencies that help reset your body.
Absolutely. So we said, it's not starvation. Starvation's really different.
It is.
because there's plenty of people that eat that are starving. Okay? There's plenty of you out there who are eating daily and are extremely nutrient deficient, and you're technically starving, and your body thinks you're starving, and you're super overweight because of it.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's different.
Or underweight. Everyone thinks if you're thin, you're healthy.
No.
And that's something that I've learned through my journey. There was a couple days that I'd gotten really thin, and Ken's like, yeah, I ain't healthy.
I ain't looking good.
Like, I mean, I appreciate your weight's gone down, but that's not healthy. We need to build you back up again. So understand that health is not what you weigh or what you look like or comparison to other. It's all about how you're feeling and how your body is responding to the inputs you're putting into it.
For sure.
Am I on the right path?
I think that's a way better definition than most on what health is. It's something tangible. We don't talk enough about.
No.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
Your body gives you very good indications, and I want to restore faith in your own system if you've lost faith in it. How you feel absolutely is a great indication of if something's working or not, if you're giving it enough time, or if even when working with my clients, it's not a guarantee that whatever approach that we think will work will vibrate specifically with that individual very well. So just because your friend is taking cod liver oil from a certain manufacturer and it's working like a champ for them, doesn't mean cod liver oil of any kind is going to be beneficial for you.
You know, we say that all the time here. Every biological being can benefit from nutrition, whether that's hemp-based nutrition or minerals from the earth, but how it's delivered into your body is completely unique to that person, because your experiences, I mean, it's like what we talked about once before about twins. Twins can be born, they have the exact same DNA profile, and then at 45, one twin dies and the other one lives to be 85. They started out with this exact same DNA profile. So how does that happen? How do people that are genetically identical, one of them passes and one of them does not? So when we talk about these journeys, we're not saying don't listen to what your friends have to say, because there's a nugget of information, there's a nugget of education in everyone you talk to, but it's a nugget that you have to assess and say, okay, is this nugget good for me?
Right. And I think that should always be the number one place you start. Is it for me? Do I vibrate with this information? Do I vibrate with this approach? Do I vibrate with this particular organic material I'm going to put into my body? Does it feel right to me? Does my mind wrap around it? Do I understand it? You often can't get things done using certain techniques in health or much of anything if you can't really understand it, because then the belief system part of health, right? And that's an absolute real thing. You have to also believe in what you're doing or it won't work. I don't care, it could be the best thing since sliced bread to get you well, but if you're not there mentally and spiritually connected to it to tell all of yourselves, we're in this game together, right? And we do believe the path that we're going on, then it's going to be counterintuitive. I've seen it happen plenty of times. Stuff that I've seen work on particular people with the same makeup and blood charts, you name it.
Mentally ready.
But it doesn't necessarily matter all the time.
It's funny. So we talk about fasting started from religion. So I have a really good friend, Laura Lindquist. If you're out there, hi Laura.
Hey Laura.
She owns the Palestra Salon Spa in downtown Charlotte. If you haven't been, go. She's an amazing healer. I'm blessed to have a lot of people like that in my life, and I will share them with you through every episode that we have. But through Laura's faith, she practices fasting once a month. It is part of her religion. Mm-hmm. And it's something that she believes very deeply in. And for her, and we had a nice conversation this week about fasting, so I could prep for this with you. But for her and her religion, it's not so much connecting with herself as it is connecting with her God. She does this as a sacrifice to him, to take away from the physical body and give solely 100% to her spiritual body during a 24-hour span. So she'll have dinner at like 5 o'clock on a Saturday night, and then she won't eat again until 5 o'clock on Sunday. Yes. She won't drink, she won't eat. When people hear that, they get really uncomfortable and scared.
Yes.
I was uncomfortable and scared. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I know how your body needs to have water.
Yeah.
But she explained to me how that time is a time of reflection and prayer. So even though a lot of religions use the word pray, some of us use the term meditation, it's really connecting with one's inner self, connecting with your spirit, connecting with the divine, whatever you want to call that. We all have our version of that.
Yes.
Even if you're an atheist, I hate to tell you, you have a version that you're connecting with something.
Of course.
And maybe that something is just your inner you, and that's okay. But she uses that as a time of reflection, but it is part of her monthly regimen, which is why it's so important to talk about how fasting started as a religious act.
Yeah.
So, and every religion,
well,
Catholicism has
it's
it,
everywhere.
Christianity has it, Judaism has it.
They all have a form of it, every last one. And I think that's also kind of like what we were saying earlier. You never know what's actually going to vibrate, and fasting is much of the same. There's a flavor of fasting for everyone, right? To where, you know, if you don't particularly like this style of fasting, here's the best part: fasting's free. You can try
it's
it.
Totally free.
It's free, and you can put it down, and you can pick one up, and you can continue to experiment with this. So we're going to talk about my favorite one first, okay? Dry fasting, because I feel like dry fasting.
Not my favorite.
It's not her favorite, but I don't think she's ready for dry fasting.
I already did it. I'm in it.
She's a little bit in it. So let's think about extended, in the type of fasting that we're typically talking about today. Is we're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on intermittent fasting. We're going to spend way more time on extended fasting, 24 hours or more. What type of benefits that you should be looking to gain from it, why to do it, and a few tips on how to do it safely. So dry fasting means no food, no water. Nothing goes in your body except air. No smoking. No contact with water is one version of dry fasting where you literally don't even bathe for the amount of time that you fast.
Because your body can absorb.
Because your body absorbs water when you're walking around. If there's moisture in the air, your body does absorb that moisture. So
and what is
if you jump into a shower,
of going
same deal.
So we know when Laura talked about it, for her it was a religious connection.
Yeah.
So, but physically, what's happening in your body? Because we're always taught that you have to have water or you'll die.
Well,
so
I should have died a lot at this point. I mean, when you think about,
you're still here, you're good.
When you think about, and I was just watching I don't know, my wife had this show on last week, and it's this young guy and this older guy, and they're kind of going all over the world doing health kind of stuff, because he's a naturopath and he's not. He's just a kid.
Are you talking about the Zac Efron show?
Yes.
I actually love that show.
I haven't really seen it.
It's fun.
I kind of liked it, but I think
Zach, we like your show.
Yeah. And so they were doing this one, and it was like, they started off, and it was like 3 days. If you don't have water for 3 days, you're gonna die. I was like, can we just move on? I don't want to watch this, because I know it's BS. Okay.
It's interesting.
So a lot of you've been programmed your whole life. You're gonna die. You don't have any water in 3 days.
It's not true.
It's not true. I don't even know why they're putting out on TV shows. Horrible, right? You're made up of so much water. How could you possibly die in 3 days without it? If basically it's the major part of what you are.
Well, think back. I mean, if we can scroll back the clock and look at time when humans were not going to grocery stores and not driving cars and not going to farmers markets, but we had to hunt and forage. There would be days where rivers would dry up and they would hike, do physical, heavy, what we would consider heavy labor today, just to find water, and one drop of it was like,
and water resupplies. You go days without water, and there's also people out in deserts who do a lot without water. Weeks.
And it's funny because I was learning through a Joe Dispenza talk about fasting, and one of the things he says is when you fast, you activate your pineal gland. It kicks into full gear to help you regulate and to help you see.
Yeah.
So your pineal gland.
If it's able to.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
One of the first things to realize about fasting is if you're living extremely out of sync with health, right? Like most of you out there probably have an idea of probably what's healthy, but more importantly, you know what's not. You probably know alcohol, smoking, processed foods are not good.
but you get overloaded. I think that's what I discovered personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that I can talk to you from this space. And just so you know, not every fast is going to look the same on every person. Like when Ken came in, I started a dry fast Thursday night. So yesterday I didn't consume water other than
that's what you meant. You did start.
I literally
cool. So
would stick my tongue in water just to get my tongue wet, but not even enough to swallow, like literally enough to wet the tip of my tongue, because when you talk a lot. But this is my version. The next time I go through a dry fast, I won't even need that because my body will be trained for that. And I was petrified. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was absolutely petrified. Like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Well, where did that recording come from? Because I can do anything. So that's something. But I think as we live our lives, we keep hearing the same negative thing over and over, or told the same thing, or we fall into a pattern, whether that's emotional, spiritual, work, financial, whatever that pattern is, and we get scared of the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what tends to happen. So for me, my journey through fasting has made me hyper aware of things. And I have to share this.
Go ahead.
Okay, Oprah, I get you. I love some bread. Love that bread. After I went through my journey with fasting, I cannot stand bread, because all of a sudden that signal stopped coming in. And my body's like, I consume. I'm like, yes. Sourdough, little cheese. I'm like,
fasting,
this is awesome.
Breaks frequencies.
It broke the frequencies, and my body was like, whoa, that's not, I don't want that anymore. And it was really interesting because it was something that I was so in love with, and it would satisfy me and it nourished me. But what my body desires as nourishment has changed. So fasting is almost like a giant reset. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely.
But dry fasting for a lot of people was scary. So when I say I fasted before, I did a liquid fast. So we're going to go over that as well. But dry fasting is much, much, much more intense because it is completely dry. And it was scary. So right now I'm on 30 hours, roughly, of having nothing but enough water to wet the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, and that's pretty darn dry. And so when you think about what's happening in the body in a over a specific amount of time, so in 30 hours, like what's transpired inside of Heather? Well, Heather's insulin is like perfect already, right? So if you've been dealing with blood sugar issues and you're diabetic, I'm not giving you medical advice, but I help diabetics with this all the time. Okay, it's how you leverage it. So at least read up, study, see who can help you kind of do this. Read some books. Dry fasting book I recommend is look up Dr. Filanov. Okay, he's the most formidable expert. He's Russian, and so he's the most formidable documented person on the dry fasting experiments on the planet today. And you can get his book online. It's really easy to find.
Religions have been doing this forever, so this is not like Church of Latter-day Saints practices fasting. I mean, there's every religion out there, but there's a reason why this is so important, because it does reset your body.
Well,
would you say our bodies become addicted to the programs that we've been playing forever? Like, do you feel like maybe?
I don't think bodies become addicted. Okay. I think bodies, the body's job is to do the best that it can, no matter how jacked up you treat it. So it's just an ingenious machine, because no matter what you do to it, it's constantly calibrating, right? And it wants to calibrate you to a state of where it doesn't have to do a lot of work, right? Which we all know that's homeostasis. So if you're in a place and you're stuck, fasting will unstick you. It can.
That's true.
It can.
Emotionally too.
But really, I think even through part of, and I say this a lot, fasting's not the hard part. It's how you break the fast that's the hard part, and the actions you take to protect the work that you did during the fast.
So let's talk about that. What work happens while you're doing fast? Because I know when I was going through this journey, I really wanted to understand what's happening to my body. So what happens on the onset of a dry fast? Like, so we dry fast every night, guys. Every single one of you. If you sleep, you dry fast every night. So don't be so scared. And once I embraced it, and actually Laura said this to me, she goes, honey, you fast every day. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never fasted. She goes, when do you stop eating dinner and when do you eat breakfast in the morning? That's a fast. That's a fast. So everyone dry fasts for about 8 hours anyway. So don't be so afraid of it. But after you reach that fasting norm of 8 hours, for some people it's 12 because they don't eat breakfast right away.
Right.
What starts to happen biologically?
Well, biologically, in a simplistic kind of way, which I think most of you will probably appreciate, you are opening the door at a cellular level to free your cells to repair. Most of us are spending so much time digesting food, and our cells are so busy dealing with the toxins and the nutrients, shuttling all those things around, making up specific processes,
What do you mean
developing
busy?
enzymes. It's busy doing work.
It's using your energy.
It's always using it.
It's
Eating is the most taxing thing a human does, next to having an orgasm. Those are the two most biggest energy
let's think
things that
about
we
why
put out.
that is. So first you think about the food, then you chew the food, then you swallow the food, then your body uses muscles, right, to push the food into your intestines, where your intestines continue to squeeze and work on the food. This is all using
And then you're pushing
energy.
out fluids all over the place.
You know, like, so as this is working through, so we just think, oh, you eat, it goes in the mouth, and you don't think about it. But your body's thinking about what you just ate for 2 to 3 hours after you've eaten it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even realize how much energy food was taking or eating was taking until I wasn't doing it. Because all of a sudden, you would think when you fast, you're not going to have energy. You're not putting fuel in. I have more energy. Like, get up on out of my way, because I'm like all that energy I would have normally used for consuming, I've got to do 100 different things. So that's a really, I don't think people understand how much energy eating actually takes. But it's emotional and physical energy. It's
to the body. It's all energy.
We've all heard about emotional eating.
Over 200 decisions per day people make about what they're going to eat and put in their mouth. That's a lot of energy. That's an average. So if you have an eating issue, like a little bit of a disorder, or you're just getting on a diet, then it's probably a lot more.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Probably double at least. And so you wonder why you get to the end of the day and you get back from work and you're walking into the house and chaos is going on in the house and you're like, geez, and then no one's got dinner figured out yet because you don't plan for this, right? So you get home and it's the same thing over and over. You don't have enough energy left because your willpower's been tapped out. Willpower's a real thing, right? So now that's been tapped out. So it's very easy to make a poor decision at night about what you're going to put in your mouth and how you're going to feed your family.
How many of us make a quick meal? I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you walk home, you're tired, you worked all day, the kids didn't do anything. I'm talking to all of you because we all homeschool or closet school because we have to go back to work or whatever that's the reality right now. I work schooled yesterday. I homeworked my kids, literally, because I brought them to work with me. But then you get home and you're like, you know it's not right, but you're gonna grab that mac and cheese. You're gonna reach for those things that don't really nourish you. They sustain you, but they don't nourish you. And sustain isn't even the right word. It's just fluff.
I think it just treats a condition. When we eat like that, we're just treating a condition of appetite.
So not
because more than likely, none of you have starved in your life, and you're probably not starving now, so you never truly been hungry.
Yeah.
Most of us are dealing with appetite, and appetite is just an emotional response. So basically, everyone's an emotional eater. It's not, some people just have it worse than others.
Right.
There's a reason that we're all emotional eaters, because we're designed that way. From the moment that you drink your mother's breast milk, you have, brain stimulating, beautifully designed things to make a baby want to drink the milk.
Sugars.
Right? And the other things that kind of get us high. That's why babies are so high and happy when they drink from a breast. And they fall asleep on a breast and they're just knocked out and pleased because they got a nice kick up from that. Okay? So it creates an emotional response. That's never going to change.
And now we've mimicked that in food.
For sure.
And manufacturers know that. So let's go back. I know we will get off topic 20 times. Just follow us.
Y'all know this show. You know
all of this, all of it correlates to your health. So the reason we get off these topics is because that's where your brain's going. So we're going to go on that train with you. But so you're 12 hours in, you're 18 hours in. Your body is looking for food. Now, I experienced through my dry fast, it was around 14, 16 hours. My stomach's like, what in the actual F are you doing?
Signals.
And then I had to sit there and go, wow, my stomach is like wanting food. I'm just going to sit with that for a minute. 5 minutes later, it was completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
There was no more grumbling.
It
Just literally went away. Why? Tell me what's happening at that point.
At that point, typically it's normally around a pattern. So the first hunger pain you feel on the fast is pattern centric. It's just, that's when you normally turn the sprinkles on. The sprinklers, I mean your digestive juices and everything.
So it's like a timing.
They get used to what you do every day. So if you're pretty systematic in how you eat, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, your digestive system starts preparing for that
like
in
an alarm
advance.
clock.
It knows what's up. It's like,
right.
That's why I remember talking about the body wants to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
So once it understands your patterns, even your liver is super intelligent. It's more intelligent than probably almost any other organ in your body. It knows what you're going to do in weeks. It's got your algorithm down about how you do things. So it will prepare.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic.
We'll do that on another one because we can do a whole thing just on liver alone.
And we will, because there's a lot of different topics that I think a lot of times when we talk about medicine or we talk about doctor stuff, we go to a heart doctor, we go to a gynecologist, we go to different doctors for different things. It would be really nice to see a doctor that looks at the whole body, because all of this is connected. When you affect one gland, the other one responds.
Everybody's talking to each other inside.
It's no different. If you pull my left hand, my right hand's going to reach out to try to balance myself organically. I mean, visually think about that. If you push someone, they're going to immediately fly back to try to balance themselves. How do we assume our bodies don't react the same exact way? So when you push on one organ or one hormone or any function that your body does, it's going to have an equal and opposite reaction in another area.
Nothing is working in the body in isolation.
So you're in the same. The hunger pain is a reinforced response. So it's not actually being hungry, because I wasn't in pain.
Right.
My stomach just went, and I went, yeah, I'm good. And within minutes it went away, and I was fine about my day. And I was really expecting to be super, super thirsty all day. I really wasn't. I mean, literally putting a drop of water on my tongue just to wet the tip of my tongue was enough.
Right.
My mouth never dried out. I was expecting it to. I'm a breather, a mouth breather at night. Like for sure. Like my husband always knows when I have bad breath, because but I didn't even wake up with a dry mouth, and I was fully expecting to wake up like
right. I got nothing.
Didn't. Why?
Because you're made of
Talk
water.
to me about what's happening.
Because you're made of water, and if we would just remember that, we tend to only want to remember that in certain instances. So you can, go and dry fast. Oh my God, I need tons of water. Prove that to me. And I challenge actually anyone on this, in the internet, go show me 3 scientific studies, I don't care where they come from, that prove exactly how much water you're supposed to drink every day. And when you do that, send it to me and we'll do a live together. And I guarantee you I can still break that whole thing down to garbage. Because there is no such thing. We are born with something called thirst. It's an actual survival mechanism that will tell us when to drink.
Just like fight or flight syndrome.
Correct. We have everything we need. We don't need any doctor to tell us I need 8 glasses or 12 glasses or I need to be drinking half my body weight. I don't follow any of that, just to be straight up with you. So you can like me or dislike me for that. It's okay. I've been through my own experience and shared this experience with many other people, and they have also validated this for themselves. You got to make your own walk.
Validating it now.
Yeah, you got to take your own walk.
How am I not incredibly thirsty after 30 hours?
Because your body makes water.
34 hours.
Your body makes cellular water. So I have dry fasted.
What does that mean? Let's talk about that.
I have dry fasted. My longest dry fast was 15 days, and every day I peed. Every day I urinated. A good amount. Regardless, some days I pee twice a day, some days I pee once a day. Because what's happening is the longer that you go through a fast, whether it be a water fast or dry fast.
So what are you peeing out at that point? I gotta ask.
You're getting out.
Now we're talking urine.
What's coming out? You're starting to process things that the body no longer needs, that it's been holding on to.
So what you're saying is like our body's like a hoarder.
Oh yeah.
Like we start hoarding, we hoard programs of food that we like. And like here, not like here. There's a difference. Liking here and liking here is different. So we hoard programs on food. We hoard water. We hoard toxins. Why is our body hoarding all
Because you're not giving it a break to let go of it. And that's why fasting has always been around, because you need an opportunity to release these things. Period. And fasting is where you can do that, because your body's only working on assessing what is necessary for survival, what is necessary to upregulate the body to cope with the lack of nutrients coming in. So it starts to use what you have. And so that process is just called autophagy.
It's like a reset. Like we reset our computers. Like we all flush our cache, or if you don't, you should be flushing your cache in your computer. But we do these things to maintain our computers. We get oil changes and flush out the fluid systems of our cars. It's really, what we're talking about is doing a giant reset or a flush of our internal biological systems. That's really what we're talking about. Maybe fasting isn't even the right word. Maybe we should call it flushing.
Well, I don't know. You're doing that, and then also you are encouraging certain processes to kick in that will only kick in a fasted state.
Okay, let's talk about those processes.
So
what are those?
So the first one that's most important is the process of autophagy. And autophagy just means the eating of oneself.
It sounds really gross.
It does sound gross. But where you're at right now, I mean, you're headed towards, you're probably at about 150% to 200% autophagy. And if she was to continue her dry fast upwards of 72 hours or more, she will be way over 300%. She's going to peak out of autophagy. So autophagy is a healing opportunity for most people if they have things going on in the body. So if you have not so pretty cells, right? You've got some ugly cells that aren't perfect. You've got some little diseases, some bacteria. You've got even some viral stuff hanging around the body. The body will use them as sources of fuel. It'll eat them up. So you can take this as, take it for your own mind. If you're thinking, wow, I've been doing all these things to try to heal my body for years and it just hasn't been working. Maybe you just need to close your mouth for a week, or work up to that.
Your body will continue to eat, and when you're not putting in a new source of nutrients, I just want to make sure I'm hearing this layman's terms. Your body will say, okay, what around here is garbage that I can eat? So it's almost like your body's a garbage disposal, and it's like, okay,
and it's looking for the
tissue. No,
and it's looking for the weak things, and that's important because a lot of people go, oh, fasting, then I'm going to lose muscle. That's like, no, you're not.
Right,
in the beginning, it's looking for the weak parts of the body, not the strong. The things that are going to keep you strong, it's going to leave intact. Okay, in fact, those parts of your body are probably going to upregulate.
Starve a fever.
Oh, you can get warm in a fast.
Yeah, but like the old saying, feed a cold, starve a fever.
Yes.
We don't need to feed a cold at all.
You should always starve a food.
Like,
I think you should starve everything.
That's why when you're sick, do you ever notice when you're sick, your body doesn't crave food? You're not hungry. And I know my mom was like, oh,
but you gotta eat. You gotta eat.
But do we? I mean, maybe that's our body's natural and organic signal telling us, hey, I don't want you to eat. I gotta eat this stuff that's making you sick. So fast forward, I had a patient come in yesterday talking about breast cancer and how she was a little nervous about the idea of fasting because of one of the chemicals her body's on. She was nervous. I said, but I wonder if, and I'm not a doctor, and I told her that, I said, I wonder if your fasting would start eating away some of the toxin buildup from the post-cancer treatment.
Well, let's assume.
I challenged her to challenge her doctor on that.
Yes.
Challenge your doctor because it's okay to question your doctors. It's okay. They don't know everything, but when you question them, it becomes a synergistic relationship of healing. Instead of a doctor telling patient, when the patient starts to question, now it becomes a team effort where you're working together on trying to resolve these things. So I know we've got generations out there that you just, doctor says you do. I'm giving you permission, Ken's giving you permission. Ask questions, because as much as that doctor knows, they're not in your body. And even though we're all biological, we're all uniquely different. Remember the scenario with the twins. So we really need to be our own health advocates and speak up. And if you think your emotion's not related to what you're going through, it is. When Ken calls me for our talks, as he walks me through my coaching experience, he doesn't ask me what the hell I ate. He goes, how do you feel? And I'm like, Dick, I want to talk about my food. And he's like, no, I want to talk about how you're feeling, because how you feel is a representation of what's happening in your gut. So how do you feel about fasting as it correlates to tumor growth, cancerous cells, or any type of calcification or extra growth, tissue growth in one's body?
Well, we got to talk tumor for a second. If we're going to talk kind of down that line.
It's not a tumor.
Right?
Sorry.
And tumors, I just look at tumors for what they really are, and it's a protective system for your body, right? If we didn't have cancer as a detox response in the body, we would just die.
A detox response. Explain that.
Right? So if we're looking at a tumor is helping you contain something that's toxic. That's its whole point.
So what you're saying.
So it's not exposing whatever that nasty little scenario is of cancer going on, is not running rampant throughout your body. Yet, most medicine practices just want to go to remove a tumor, and there are times when they should be removed, especially if they're blocking air pathways and blood pathways and whatnot. But tumors can reduce in size as well as they can grow. So if you're doing the right things to counteract that cancer and the oxidation process or the inflammation process that got that to kick off, then that tumor will start to shrink. Even ones on your thyroid, which is just popped in my mind because I was just talking with someone yesterday about someone who's having their thyroid taken out because they have tumors on them.
I had that.
Yeah.
So actually, let's dive down that, because that's something a lot of people can resonate with. So I was going through a time a couple years ago. I was losing hair. Like, I could go like this and pull out chunks. I know all women lose hair. Don't shake your head. I'm talking like actual,
Take some B vitamins.
like full chunks, and that's, take vitamins, take this. And I was getting scales on my skin, and my weight, I would fluctuate 6 pounds in a day without eating anything. It was really crazy, and I'd gone to several doctors, and I had a doctor tell me that I had a fatal vitamin D disorder, which there's no such thing. There's no such thing. But at the time, I didn't know what to believe. I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I said to my doctor, I'm like, I don't feel right. And I told her, I said, something feels weird here. Like, it just doesn't, like, my body's telling me that I need to look here for what's happening. She goes, all of your levels are right. So we did my blood work, my thyroid levels were right, my fat blood, everything was correct. My blood looked perfect, but I was still feeling this. I said, does it cost you anything to send me for an ultrasound to see if I'm okay? And she goes, well, you're healthy. I said, but does it cost you anything? Because I have insurance. So she goes, well, no. I said, if it doesn't cost you anything, why are you fighting me on this? Just
let me do it.
Let's just take a look, because maybe there's something we can't see just through blood. Because remember, when you do a blood test, it's on a giant bell curve. We've all heard of bell curves for school. It's on a bell curve. So just because it's normal for someone with your height, age, weight, and sex doesn't mean it's right for you. Remember the twin scenario again, right? So,
and it's only for a day. It's a snapshot.
It's just a snapshot. So I went and I got an ultrasound, and guess what they found?
Nodules.
I had nodules. I had a nodule on each side of my thyroid. And they're like, oh, they're precancerous. I'm like, are they really? So
how did I go from healthy to
it
precancerous?
Didn't feel precancerous to me. It felt
what does precancerous
like a
mean?
Warning to me. I don't know. What is precancerous? And we'll talk about that.
So
So I had the test done, and it was awful. They go in with the needle, and they like literally go like this, every angle, to take samples of these nodules. So I looked like I was all black and blue. Like, I looked like a victim. Like, literally, I looked like a victim of some kind. And I remember wearing turtlenecks in July. My boss is like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, and he's like, oh my gosh. And he thought something happened at home. I'm like, no, it was a test. It was a test. Turns out the nodules were fine, but I wasn't okay with their solution, because they started to put me on drugs for the nodules, and thyroid medication, and all of these things. None of it was resonating, because every time I take it, my body immediately expel it.
Right.
So either I was vomiting or I had diarrhea. All of the things, the ailments I brought to the doctor in the first place had exacerbated tenfold. I'm like, I'm not feeling this. So I started to go on my own journey about thyroid nodules, and I actually found a doctor here in North Carolina, at the time I lived in Chicago, that studied the correlation of thyroid and iodine. And it was really interesting because he did something on me called an iodine loading test, and it was to see how much iodine my body's actually storing and using. The answer was none. So the answer is not to give me more iodine. The answer is, why is my body not storing iodine? And this is the onion layers I was talking to you about. Long story short, after I was able to get my iodine under control, the nodules magically disappeared. And all of the doctors, because I'd have to go every 6 months to make sure it wasn't turning into cancer, which I willingly obeyed and did. And found out, the doctor's like, well, what happened to your nodules? And I'm like, I fixed my iodine. They're like, that's impossible. But is it? But is it impossible? So this is just one of those things we're talking about. The nodules were a warning sign to me, telling me that I had an essential mineral that my body needed that was off kilter. So cancer is a tumor, so it's starting to tell you the same thing. But how does it go from a warning sign to death? Because a lot of people die from cancer, and I don't want to dismiss how horrible
I'm not a cancer doctor, and I don't think anyone has cancer completely understood. You read one study, you can go this way or that way. Even in terms of how fasting can help course correct cancer, there's, from a scientific study standpoint, conflicting information. No, there's some. It's not enough.
Right.
We're clearly far away from the amount of scientific data that we have to actually correlate to go, this isn't, definitely shows efficacy, or no, don't do that because it's going to make matters worse.
Now, have you worked with cancer patients through fasting, and what are your personal experiences?
My personal experience with fasting is, it helps.
How does it help?
It helps stop the cancer from growing.
Okay.
And that's the first thing you need to do anyway. So the cool part about cancer is it's just a process, like any other process in the body. So once you stop the stimulus of creating that process to create cancer, cancer stops growing. Cancer stops multiplying. So the first thing is find out what's stimulating and is the causation factor of cancer in the first place, and then remove that if you can. Get rid of that from the whole life and your biome.
What if your cancer is caused by a hormone?
Is it caused by a hormone, or is the hormone just happen to be in the room?
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So these are all
kind of like asking, like right now this time of year, and you mentioned it earlier, kind of like saying, oh, I went in to get a blood check and they said my vitamin D levels are low. So I need to go and take vitamin D. Okay, great, but what's causing the vitamin D to be low?
What was causing my iodine to be
Correct.
low? So I think
just asking a different question.
When we talk about fasting, a lot of people get concerned. Like, I have cancer, I shouldn't fast. I have Crohn's, I shouldn't fast. I'm diabetic, I shouldn't fast.
And it's because most people think about the only way to help themselves is to put something in their mouth.
People think that only healthy people should do a dry fast. Only healthy people should do a dry fast. But I think it's the exact opposite. I think it is the people that are struggling that should. It's like an instant reset. Now, you and I work together for months.
I like to call it more like a pattern interruption.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to say this because it's really important. I started working with Ken back in March.
This is important. I think it's
we
really
went
good.
through the Candida process. So because that's where I was coming from. And that's one thing I need you to know. When Get Me Some Green partners with clinicians, it's because we partner with clinicians that are on the same ethical path that we are. And Ken's on that path. He met me where I was at that moment in time, and that was important. But from March until September, end of August, we went through the health journey. And then I called him one day. He asked me, how are you feeling? I'm like shit, quite frankly. And I was emotionally falling apart. And I said, I just don't want to eat. He goes, don't. And I'm like, okay, you've been telling me I gotta eat this, this, and this, and I was a little pissed at first. Like, first you tell me I gotta eat this, and I gotta take this, and I gotta balance my minerals like this, and now you're saying just don't. And he said, you're ready to reset. And I didn't understand it until I did it. But now my first fast was a liquid fast, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But doing that reset was exactly that. I was able to let go of so much, not only emotionally, but emotional relationships to food and attachments were gone like that. And they have not come back since, which is really interesting. And that's why I want to really talk about fasting as a tool. This is not a lifelong thing. For some of you,
it is for me.
For some people, like Ken, for me, this is going to be introduced into a monthly regimen in my life, and Ken and I are working through what does that look like for me. Laura, my friend Laura, does it monthly. A lot of people do forms of fasting monthly, but if you're scared to do it monthly, that's okay. But try it to reset so you can reconnect with what the signals your body are trying to tell you.
I know how to sell it. It'll make you younger. Ladies, it'll make your skin look better. Right?
That's true.
Why?
Well,
why does it do all those things?
Us.
It's because when you start to fast, you turn off the aging process. Right? Every time you eat, you age. So you turn on AMPK, which basically is process in the body that kind of goes down the aging path. Okay? When you don't eat, you turn on mTOR. And mTOR is more of an anti-aging process, right? So think about it. Every time I eat, I age. And that should motivate you a little bit to make sure when I do eat, it better be really good. It better be right. It better really align with me and what I want out of my life and out of my health. Because you can absolutely be here younger. I'm at an age now where I'm just way more concerned about living in a state of extreme vitality and youth the longer that I am on the planet. And
feeling good.
And feeling amazing.
I mean, I felt good the first couple months we worked together.
Right.
But when I remember like
whole
a couple days
game.
in the fast, I called him and I said, I can do pull-ups. And he's like, great. I'm like, I go, you don't understand. I've not been able to lift my own body weight with my upper body in never. Like push-ups, yes, or plank pose, yes, but to grab a bar over my head and grab a hold and lift my body, yeah, that's never been a thing for Heather. No. But all of a sudden, I'm like, I wonder, because I was feeling. Now, I did my liquid fast for 5 days, and that's the next fast we're going to talk about, because for many of you, that might be a better place to start. It's not quite as scary, and it's equally as profound. For me, it was a better place to start. I couldn't have done this first. I wasn't prepared.
And you really prepared ahead of that.
It took time, though.
You got very clean in your eating.
And that's
for
true.
months.
Now, remember, I worked with Ken for months ahead of time.
She was very prepared for this.
Now, don't get me wrong. There were days I'm like, Ken, it's Saturday. I ate ice cream, steak, this, that, but it was a day. It wasn't every day.
And sometimes it was just a meal.
And yeah, sometimes it was just
or just one treat.
So I became that crazy person, take a picture of everything I ate. Not to post, but to show Ken. And then I got lazy. But it's really, really profound when you start going through this process of understanding what fasting is doing for you.
And I think that's what makes it different but
it's a reset. That was what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
That, my first fast, all of a sudden, the things that I just, eating right, I couldn't get control of it, eating clean, there was just certain things I was just not letting go of. And I would tell Ken, I'm like, I feel like I'm hitting a wall. I feel like I'm hitting a wall. After fasting, the wall's gone. And my strength level is incredible. My endurance level is incredible. Things that used to cause me pain don't. And here's a great example. I was playing ball with my son, and we're playing catch, and just for giggles, I'm like, let's see if we can play catch on one foot. Children do this, and parents, I know you know what I'm talking about. Kids do amazing things, and you're like, how is he doing that? You know, a kid will sit there and watch your children. They'll like suddenly like stand like this in the kitchen, and then they'll hop around the kitchen, and you're like, and you don't understand how they're doing it. And then when you try to do it, your quads start to run, and you're like,
everything's
oh
like,
my
no.
Gosh.
Everything's saying no, stop.
No, stop. So I'm playing ball with my son, and he lifts his leg, and I lift my leg. I'm trying to mimic this 10-year-old boy. 40 minutes later, my leg is still up. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel muscle fatigue. I had so much oxygen in my blood and so much strength in my muscles that it didn't even affect me. I became
Let's talk about some of the other cool things that happened, right? So some other cool things that happen while you fast is outside of the cellular detoxification that's going to go on, right? And you're replenishing your cellular water. If you dry fast, as you cycle out the old water, your body just makes new water, okay, at a cellular level. So you might want to look up some people. Your body makes it. Your body makes it. You're carrying a ton of it already. And we can get into the differences between H2O and then cellular water, which are two different things. But that's for another discussion.
Well, let's talk about like a liquid fast, because I know when I would say
well, before we jump into liquid fast, let's finish this point, because this is aligned with both.
For sure.
So the other great part about fasting is stem cell generation. So stem cells are where they're like baby cells, and as we age, we stop making them. We just don't make them as well, and the cells just get old, and we get old.
And they start to calcify, and they move slower. And remember what I've told you, if you've ever been in here, cells can only reproduce in the state that they're currently in. So think of a cell as it duplicates where it's at. A cell can get strong or weak, but it can only duplicate itself in the state that it's in at that moment in time.
It's cloning.
So when you start creating healthy cells, or you fast and your body eats up those damaged cells, only the healthy cells are the ones recreating.
And that's what you
wrap your brain around that for a minute, because this isn't a really, there's a reason we're still practicing medicine, and we don't have
We'll always practice it.
We'll always practice it because we're constantly learning what the body's doing. So here's someone that didn't eat anything for 5 days, and I was doing pull-ups and stronger than I've probably ever been in my entire life. So
human growth hormone
really interesting.
Goes up. Right, HGH increases
immunity.
When you fast.
So I did a wellness scan on myself before I fasted, and then I did a wellness scan on myself after, and my immunity levels shot through the roof. It was 180% different after a 5-day fast of how much stronger my immune system.
Because your immune system was rebuilt in about 72 to 96 hours.
Pretty incredible stuff. So when I say liquid fast, I had many of my friends come say, "Oh, I've done a liquid fast. I juiced." That's not liquid fasting.
That's a
what
juice
I've
fast.
learned from Ken is liquid fasting is consuming liquids that don't change your blood sugar levels. So you're consuming things like tea raw. You're consuming water raw. You are taking in bone broths completely raw. But you're not juicing, because juicing changes your blood sugar.
Absolutely.
Am I incorrect here?
You're
so
right
when you say a liquid fast, it is different than a juicing fast. So let's talk about the differences, because I know a lot of people juice fast.
Well, let's talk the difference between dry and wet.
All right, let's do it.
So dry works 3 times more efficient than wet does.
So would you say a 24-hour dry fast is almost the equivalent of like a 3-day wet fast?
Absolutely. It's 3 to 1. And so I like to work. So like one of my techniques is I'll help someone tear through, going in tiers, steadily working up days in a wet fast before I take them into a dry fast most times, and it makes them way more successful in a dry fast.
Yeah, I couldn't have started this way.
No. I mean, most people would be like, well, you just wouldn't get much out of it. You'd have broke your fast in probably a day. You just like, I'm done, right? And then you would have got depressed because you're A-type and all that stuff, right? It's like, I didn't get it done, darn it. And then then it becomes a challenge, and that's not what fasting is about at all.
We need to give ourselves
the biggest thing you got to know about fasting is to get your ego out of the game, because you could kill yourself. Okay, get your ego out of the game. You got to learn your body. You got to learn what it feels like. If you're doing extended fasting for the first time, you should work with someone that's been through it a lot, that's very well versed in that art. Because it's a bit of an art
without a coach.
Don't do it without a coach. Don't do it without a guide.
If Ken is inaccessible to you, we're not offended by that. Take the information here, but he is accessible. He works with everyone all over the country, but get a coach. Go through this journey with a guide, someone that's been through it, so that because if you think that, oh, my chin itches. For me, we're in the phone, I'm like, my chin itches. He goes, put the camera next to your chin. And he noticed that I was calcifying. My body was detoxing through my face. It wasn't just a chin itch. Mm-hmm. So coaching with someone is going to point out those things to you, because that's when he said, don't stop. Your body's getting rid of stuff through remember, your skin is your largest organ. It's going to tell you something. So I really encourage you, as you go through this journey, get a coach, reach out to someone who's done this, preferably a medical coach or a clinician that's works with other people through this, so that any sign that you think is irrelevant actually plays a big, big role. So I just had to say that.
It's all good. No, that's actually really good. And so water fasting is very good. There's actually a couple places around the world that I know of where they host long water fasts, 30 days, 45, 60 days for deep healing, because and so, you know, in my space, and we look at dry versus wet, it's really what flavor suits you best.
Right.
Do you have the ability and patience, fortitude, magnitude to go 30 days to get what you could probably do in 10 days?
Right.
On a dry fast. And that's why I love dry fasting, because I live in the real world, right? I have a family. There's only so long that should go by that I'm not eating dinner with my family, okay?
Right.
Because I'm a father and I should be there to do that with them, and also to lead by example with food and how to eat food. That's part of my deal. It's part of my life. So there's a time and place based on what you're trying to solve of which one of these you want to pull off the shelf and then use. So that means there's really only two types of fasting, wet and dry. And then there's idiosyncrasies between those two.
Deviations.
Little deviations. And that will depend.
Like me getting my tongue wet. That's
yeah,
that'll just, but that's really important.
I'm just gonna gargle something
and spit it out.
And spit it out so that I can get through this.
And that's okay.
And that's called taking the ego out of it, versus someone like me when I first tried to fast and I was just white knuckling it and holding on and going, I can do this, I can do this. Don't do that.
No,
don't do that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was my biggest fear with dry fasting. And then when I talked to Laura about it, she goes, and I said, well, how? And she goes, swish water if you have to.
Swish a little
and
water.
Then spit it back out, and that's okay. And I'm like, she gave me permission. Why do I need that validation from anyone else? And I called Ken, and he goes, yeah, you got to meet you where you're at and be okay with that. So I'm encouraging you, fast where you're at, and
yes.
That's okay. And this is, like you said earlier before we got on camera today, it's not a failure, it's a journey, and it's an experience. And give yourself that grace.
Give that grace and embrace it. Embrace
Learn
it.
from it.
You're going to access a superpower you were born with. It is an actual superpower.
It really is
One of the coolest things that we have going on. And I'll explain a couple of things. When I am frustrated, when I am
depressed,
kind of clogged up, and I'm thinking like, you know, my things just aren't going my way, I stop food. I go, you know what? It's food break time. And we're just going to see, and we'll see where it goes.
But why is that? For me, when we went through this with me,
yes,
it was because I wanted to reallocate the energy I was spending eating food on healing myself.
Exactly.
Because I was not in an emotionally good place. Again,
how much
2020. Oh my gosh, what a crazy year.
Yeah, how much do you have? I mean, guys, let's not. Everybody out here has a higher level of stress than they probably had in their entire lives, just because of what's in the ether right now on the planet. It's kind of out of control. So you've got this hum of stress going on that has nothing to do with how you want to run your life. It's not work. It may be work related. I just spoke with someone yesterday I've known for a long time, laid off, new stress. Fasting is an ultimate stress neutralizer. It will knock that crap out, and you will get
clear.
Missing some mental clarity.
Super clarity. And it's funny because my team that I work with here, they knew immediately I started fasting, because it was like a massive shift of like, because I was suffering from vertigo, and we'll talk about that too, but it was a massive shift. Like, okay, all of a sudden it was like a light switch went off, and I was like, gotta do this, and became incredibly focused. So
it's almost like hitting that if you see that limitless and you get that pill.
Yeah.
You can feel
I
that.
love that.
And it's actually, and don't be ashamed of this. I call it chasing a fast high, right? Because that feels really amazing. So if you fall out of that state, probably because post-fast, you started getting back into some of those things that got you into trouble in the first place. And so you're like, okay, I feel it coming back. I feel that old me kind of sneaking back in.
And that's why you keep it as a permanent regimen.
That's right.
And that's why Laura does it once a month, and that's why it's going to become part of my life.
It can, right now it can be reactive treatment, and in the future it can be preventative treatment.
Right.
Okay? And so I use fasting as a preventative measure to always ensure that my health is in the most optimal place possible. I'm not just going to do it from, because I'll be honest with you, I'll share this with Heather. Nutrition is more about what you're not doing than doing. That's really what it's more about. So if you stop doing the bad things, nutrition is really easy.
Right.
Because the bad things cause all the problems in the body, and then you depend on the good things to go fix them all. But you know, you've been doing the bad things for 30 years, and you expect all these the organic foods to fix it in a week or a month or even a year.
So how do we get people? Let's talk about when we talk about fasting. A lot of people talk about juice fasting. Let's talk about the difference between a water fast and a juice fast, so that everyone understands they really aren't the same. Each has their own benefit.
They all have
without a
benefits.
doubt. But I would almost say, correct me if I'm wrong, I would almost say do a water fast and then come off the water fast with a juice fast. Like, I mean, and just by what I've
that
learned
is
from
a
you.
way. That
So
is a good way.
let's talk about the differences between a water fast and juicing, and what does that look like?
Well, water fast is just water. And then you have to determine what source of water you're really going to use. So if you're going to water fast, or if you're going to do any type of high water intake, spring water is really good. Alkaline water is really good. Just making sure you're not drinking regular tap water. That's not
There's
good.
a lot of toxins. in tap
So
water.
you don't want to add to the problem, you want to take away the problem. And water fasting, in my opinion,
And what does that look like? It's not just water.
Yeah.
So I was allowed
It
to
can
have,
be
I was
just
allowed
water.
to have
You were on a
teas.
wet fast
Yeah, I was on a wet fast.
versus a pure water
Okay,
fast.
so let's talk about that. So there's a fast that's just water.
Yeah.
And then there's a step down from that, which is a wet fast. And
It's
that's
just like,
kind of what I did.
you can have any
I had
liquid.
tea, but only clear liquids. So clear meaning it wasn't opaque. So I was allowed to have teas, nothing in it, just straight teas. And I did a lot of bone broths.
Yes.
And chicken broth, not stock.
And that was particularly really good for her because she's also working on some gut stuff, right? So we're not taking in a ton of calories in that broth. We're not really triggering any major processes to stop. So it was good
And
because
it was as much as I wanted whenever I wanted.
because
which was nice.
there was no rule of you need to take this much in. It was respond to your body's needs. That's it.
That's it. And it was actually really easy. I got through the first day, and then after day 2, I'm like, I'm gonna go another day. And he called me. He's like, "You done?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go another day." And he's like, "All right, follow your body." And I followed my body's signals. And then it got to a point where like, I'm ready to come off. And he goes, "Before you come off, call me." Why?
Because we want
Most
to
people
break.
go right into like
We want to break.
steak.
I know.
And
We
what's
wanna
wrong
break.
with that?
Well, you know, some people don't think there's anything wrong with it. First, everything has to do with how fasted, adapted you are. So if you're not fasted, adapted, meaning you don't fast regularly, you're not going to be able to do the things that someone who fasts regularly like me can do and expect good things to happen.
It's just like working.
If she would have, I could fast for 3 or 5 days and have a steak and there'd probably be nothing wrong. She, on the other hand, may fast for 5 days, have a steak, and for the next 3 days has got the craziest diarrhea that you might ever experience in your life, right?
You know, can we just talk about expelling?
You can
So,
expel some
we're
things.
fasting, right? I'm doing this liquid fast for 5 days, and he didn't tell me 5 days. That was my journey. It was supposed to be 1.
We took it day
And
by
then I
day.
felt good, so I did another day. And then I felt good, so I did another day. And I felt good, so I did another day. So it wasn't. There was no forceful. It was Ken checking in every day, saying, "How are you feeling today? I'm gonna go another day." Cool. And that's how we did it. But on day 3, I had rainbow poop. And I called Ken, freaking out a little bit. I'm like, "Ken?" And I took a picture. I said, "I don't mean to be weird, but I took a picture of my uniform poop." And I'm like, "What in the hell is happening right here?" And he goes, "That is all of the material," and I think that's the word you used
Yeah,
specifically, that was sitting in my body, undigested, unused, and my body couldn't use it. It wasn't the eating of the fuel. Like we talked about your body eating toxins and things out that it doesn't need. this was so toxic, my body couldn't even eat it.
Yeah,
So
can use it.
wrap your mind around that. To me, that was a profound and very eye-opening experience to see this expelling after not consuming anything for years on end.
Yeah, and you will see that way more on a wet fast than you will a dry fast. On a dry fast, for most people, once you go into a dry fast, nothing's happening out the back end, more than likely at all the entire time, unless you are doing enemas along the way, and that's a whole nother story for enemas. But ultimately, between dry, wet, or liquid, you can achieve the same things.
Right.
It's more about timing, lifestyle, ability, belief, strength, and preparation.
Right.
Where are you? Right? You don't want to start from zero to dry fast.
No, take your time. And I encourage people to start with a wet fast. So we've talked about water fasting. We've talked about a liquid fast, which is what I did.
Now juice.
Now let's talk about juicing, because that is a huge topic right now. You hear people a lot talk about, I juice. But juicing does spike your blood sugar. So we're back to that place again where we're kind of defeating those things. So let's talk about what are the benefits of juicing and the differences of what's happening biologically in your body from a liquid fast to a juicing fast.
Well, I'll just be honest, from my perspective, when I look at a juice fast, the first thing I think of is it's an easier way to fast because people can still taste something, right? So they're still getting some taste. If you're very sweet adapted already, it can be a slightly better option for you depending on where you're coming from. If you're down cookies and donuts and candy bars, you'll still feel
Here in the South,
a little
Krispy
okay.
Kremes and sweet tea.
Yeah, or worse, you're hypoglycemic. So you just feel like crap as soon as you don't have any sugar in your body after about an hour and a half or less. So for some folks, a juice fast is a good stepping stone. But
so when you say juice, let's talk about that, because people
differentiate the juice.
Just juice fast does not mean go buy orange juice and that's your juice fast. Juice fast is taking fruits and vegetables and literally blending them or squeezing them. Because and actually we're talking about squeezing. Let's talk about that. There's a difference between juicing, as in squeezing and you do not consume the pulp, or taking the pulp and blending and drinking all of it. So what would you say the benefits are? Because I know one has more fiber. Obviously, if you're consuming the pulp, you're getting a lot more fibrous materials. So what are the different benefits between consuming the whole plant liquefied and just juicing the plant liquefied?
Well, the whole plant liquefied is going to you have a better opportunity to have a slower insulin response because you're not just putting in pure fructose and glucose into the body and regulating it. The fiber of the plant actually slows that process down. So for some people, that juice, because I really consider that a smoothie, right, versus juicing. But that's really the biggest rift between the two. Is someone goes, oh, you don't need all that fiber, you just need the nutrients in the juice. All right, I hear you. But what if that is causing another problem? Because if you really think about juice, we juice our own foods when we chew them. So when I take an orange and I chew the orange, I juice the orange, but then I put in the regulatory pieces of it that make it more sustainable in my body to keep me from having these high insulin spikes. That's called the fiber, right? It's that part
Which is what makes fruit good.
That's what makes fruit good. And actually, the best part of fruit, if it's clean, is the peel. That's truly the master regulator for the control of that entire food.
That's not true in all foods, because there's some peels that are just toxic to us.
Well, there's some are,
like
but
mango, you can't eat that stuff.
No, I don't know. I think you can.
Really?
Yes, it depends on the fruit, how it's used. Mango is used actually as a superfood. The skin itself. So I consume. Every day I consume about 80 different peels. Right? I take a supplement that has 80 different, some exotic and some normal fruit peels in them because they absolutely do great things because that's a ton of bioflavonoids. right? Which are antioxidants, which reduce inflammation and a lot of other things. They also deliver nutrients. So for me, I don't follow that path of logic. It depends on how you take it and how much is the dose. Right?
Dosing is key to everything.
Everything.
Everything when it comes to life. So I know that
But great.
that was big questions for people is the difference between a juicing fast. So that's really the difference. One of them is like, I was right then, it spikes your sugar levels, and one of them does not.
Correct. They both will, but one will be more dramatic than the other, and one will last longer than the other. And that will depend on everyone's regulatory system. So if you are a diabetic, consult with your doctor, see if there's something that you want to try, or go ahead and try, and then watch your reading. I would always have all my clients, check their blood glucose when they have something that's quote unquote not diabetic friendly, and understand and see what their body actually does. Oh, did you have a higher spike on this food, but a faster recovery from that spike? Because it's not just about the spike, it's the sustainment. It's about the sustainment.
What's happening, but how quickly you recover from it.
That's right.
So let's talk about the recovery from a fast, and because a lot of people don't know how to come off. So now we've talked about pretty much 3 different types of fasts. We talked about a dry fast, a wet fast, and a juice fast. So I know a lot of people, when they, like we talked about, they get off a fast and they go straight for the burger. Now Laura, sorry Laura, I didn't mean to pick on you, but she comes off her fast, she'll come off her fast with like a cheeseburger and some fruit and a salad. She's been doing this once a month her whole life.
Yeah.
Her body knows what to do. Someone like myself who's kind of new to the game wasn't the right way. So,
and you said her fast for 24 hours, right?
They're 24 hours exactly.
So a 24-hour fast is like a nothing. It's not that big of a deal.
Not when you do it once a month. No, it's more. Of it's a maintenance. But for her, again, it's a religious gift. It's
and she's doing it dry, and if she's doing it dry, that might be a little different. But breaking a 24-hour fast, you really don't have any rules for it. There's none needed. The body hasn't stopped. The body hasn't stopped really doing anything.
Now I know, like with a juice fast, there's probably not a lot there because you're consuming sugars, you're spiking. So when you come off a juice fast, coming off of it, just eating clean, you're safe. For me, when I did my liquid fast, I won't say water because I did consume grown broths and things. Ken said, for as many days as you fast, we need to bring your body, we need to ease your body back into food. And I was using melons. So when I came off my liquid fast, I ate more watermelon than any one human being I know of other than Ken eats.
But you didn't eat a ton of it as soon as you came off.
No.
You scaled it up gradually.
No, I'd have a cup.
Yeah.
So I had a cup of watermelon, and then I would wait like an hour or two, and I'd have another cup if I wanted to. But for as many days as I liquid fasted, my diet consisted of melons, but any melon I wanted, cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelon, those were pretty much the 3 that I stuck to. But melons should be eaten alone, and we're going to do another talk on food pairings, because I think learning through fasting, my body automatically separated foods for me. And I know this doesn't make sense to a lot of you, but so many of us eat a cheeseburger. I cannot stomach cheese and meat on the same plate anymore. I cannot, my body cannot process it, and it's not supposed to. The enzymes don't break down right, but no matter how many times someone tells you about food pairings, they don't make sense until you hit a reset, and then, because when your body can absorb it, you think, well, my body can take it, this can't be right. But when you do a reset and your body's no longer running a program it's not running a program of survival, it's running a program of growth and thriving, because they're different programs. And that's the way I'm going to describe it. I was surviving, but when I hit that reset, I'm now thriving. And because I'm thriving, I can't pair certain foods together anymore. But again, we'll come back, we'll do that, maybe talk next month.
Sure.
But, so I did fruit for 5 days. I came off slow. What happens when someone does a 5-day and goes right into that steak?
They get sick.
Okay, but what happens, because I know you said to me
what happens
that
in the system?
you reverse what you just did all your work.
You did all
so
this
let's
good
talk
work.
about that journey.
Well, think about this. The first thing that you do is you create stress. Okay. So
What do you mean by
you
that?
create digestive stress because your system hasn't dealt with any of those acidic foods, and meat's highly acidic.
Oh, so maybe a good analogy is I'm going to use my friend who's visiting. It's playing tennis for the first time in 20 years and expecting your muscles not to hurt the next day. Because you just used muscles that you haven't used for 20 years. So when you take a fast and you dive into it with something you used to eat, and your body hasn't done that, your stomach lining is like, I don't even know how to process this anymore.
Well,
I haven't done this in a long time.
I think a different way to look at it that maybe might be easier to grasp is it's more of a shock to the system because your whole body has been very light. So meat's pretty heavy. It's a heavy, dense food, carbon that you're going to put into the body that's been very light. Hardly anything that's been slow digesting has been in your body. Everything's been fast moving and through a liquid fast.
Oh, yeah.
Fast moving. Even when you break your fast and you go eat watermelon, melon's the fastest moving food you can put in your body.
Yeah, it's very easy to digest.
Right, very easy to digest. So now we go, okay, oh, pancreas is like, dude, gallbladder's like, hey, we got to put some acid out.
Like, whoa.
Right, we need to crank up the hydrochloric acid. We've got fats and proteins. We haven't seen those in a while. Body, let's go. So there was no introduction, right? So that's why even with...
Do you feel like your body hits a wall
again?
Well,
it's just that you're gonna be trying, you've been cruising really nice in overdrive, right? And then all of a sudden you throw that in your body after it's been in, nice smooth overdrive, and it needs to just slam down in the first gear, right?
So you're driving.
You're about to drop your transmission out.
Yeah, you're driving on a desert on a nice open road, and all of a sudden you hit the mountains and you're like this. That's pretty much what we're talking about. So what about the people that come off a fast using and they think they're doing it right? They're going in with spinach, kale, carrots, big salads. They go from no fiber to fiber. What does that look like?
Well, depending on how much you're doing, just first and foremost, volume just needs to be small. You need a small amount of volume of food when you break your fast. Just think, I need to allow the system to reboot, to recognize that I'm turning the system back on because it's been off.
Does your stomach actually shrink?
Yes.
Because I know we've all heard, my stomach is shrunk.
Yes.
But does it actually shrink?
Yes, it actually does. Because if you look at when people are obese, their stomachs are bigger. And when they reduce, literally larger. And when they reduce in size, they're smaller.
Is your ability to be satisfied directly correlated with the size of your stomach?
No, your ability to be satisfied is directly reflected on your ability to absorb food, the sensory that you have in your stomach. So it doesn't
matter how big your stomach is. So when heavier people say, well, I'm still hungry, they're not really still hungry. Because we're not trying to fill the stomach cavity.
No,
it's just a mental programming.
It's not mental, it's hormonal. It's hormonal, and then there's other parts of our anatomy that send specific signals that aren't getting through. So they've broken that communication path to their brain, and the hormonal path is not in balance. So they're not getting the message. So the brain doesn't get the message. Another way is they eat certain food in a particular way, so it's harder to get that message from the sensory in the stomach that sends that message. So if you eat, let's say, lots of animal protein and not a whole lot of fiber, you can eat tons of it. That's why they have lots of steak eating competitions. But they try to fill you up with potatoes and corn and stuff in that competition because that's the fiber that you got to fight through to really, that's going to swell up in the stomach. Meat doesn't swell up in the stomach, it just drops to the bottom of it. And so if you think about, just think about my stomach kind of as a little half orb kind of thing. And I'm dropping in meat, and meat just sits at the bottom, but that's 6 ounces of meat. And you're still going, I can eat some more. So you pop, next thing you know, you're having a 20-ounce outlaw ribeye from Longhorn, and you're still kind of like,
is that a thing?
Oh yeah. And you're like, so you got 20 ounces of meat in there, and you're still going, I got room for a potato. But if you ate 20 ounces of potato, you'd have never had any room for that meat. Because the potato's going to expand. It's fibers, right?
So just like any kind of fiber,
it's going to swell. It's going to swell, and it's going to send that sensory message to the brain to go, I'm good.
So fasting is good for every biological being. Let's just say that.
Okay.
We can agree that fasting is, but choosing the fast that's right for you is something you need to go through. big takeaways for you today is fasting is good for everyone. Choose the one that's right for you. Work with a coach when you do it, and give yourself grace. Don't give yourself. Feel your body every day. Where am I? Can I continue? And then most of all, when you come off of any fast, regardless if it's juice, water, or dry fast, do it slow. Do it slowly. Don't just stop immediately. If you come off of a dry fast, maybe you go into a wet fast. Maybe
you can go back and forth. There are some times
depends.
I'm working with people and we're going in and out of fast because we're trying to get to that peak autophagy for healing. So we go up to that and down.
There?
You feel it after a while, after you do a few, because most people need to. If dry fasts are great because you can go in and out of them. 48 hours is great. 72 hours is great. So you can get in and out of them. Water fasting doesn't tend to work that great unless you get 5 days or more in, right?
Right.
But
I can't imagine I would have.
but dry fasting is like kind of quick. So 48 hours and you're getting rapid things to happen. 72, 5-day fast is 15 days of water fasting.
Right.
So it's significant in terms of what you can do from a healing perspective, depending on whatever methodology you choose. But if you got a lot of people that the cool thing is we can talk a lot about weight loss with
That's
fasting.
not what fasting's about, though, and I think people
and people are losing
that.
it as much as possible for that. So remember in the beginning when we were talking about where does that water come from? Well, you're releasing lots of fat too. I mean, you're going to burn some fat, especially if the body doesn't need it. It's going to take advantage of using it. It's another energy bank, which is why you're not starving. Because even thin people have about a month's supply of fat on them typically.
And I know that was one of my concerns because when I did my 5-day fast, I lost a lot of weight very quickly, like 10 pounds in 5 days. And I'm not, for all of you thinking, ooh, no, don't.
That's not the
That's
part to get
not
excited
why
about.
I fasted. The benefits of mentally in my relationship with food far outweigh the pounds. So let me preface that as strong as I possibly can. But I remember telling him
Because you won't be
I'm
thinking about that when you're in the fast.
No, I said to Ken, I'm just like, holy shit, I'm gonna disappear. Like I'm literally, and he kept saying you're not, because you weren't concerned about my weight. But every day he had me said, what's your body fat? Measure your body fat, because that was the measurement he was using to determine my health level. Because your body can stand to lose body fat, but when you get to a point where that threshold becomes dangerous, that's when you need to stop, which is why it's important that you work with someone to keep track. We stopped when my body fat hit 33%.
We're good. We can stop there. Plenty of safe range.
That's
it was her first one, and she did really good for her first one. I'm like, that's juggernaut. I'm sure there's people listening to this now, but she did 5 days on her very first one. You never know what you have in you until you try. Never know.
It's all about pull-ups.
Pull-ups, man.
So if you guys have any questions about today's talk, if you have questions about fasting, if it's a good choice for you, please feel free to drop them in the comments on this video. This video will also be reposted on our YouTube page, and I know Ken usually puts a link on his page to it too. You can find him at Newbill of Health. He has a Facebook group, he has a website, he's also on Instagram, so if you're looking for him there, you cannot miss it. And we'll put links to his information as always on our account. But we're here for you. Please ask questions. If there's a topic that you would like us to discuss, please let us know what that topic is. You can also email info@getmesomegreen and we'll get those topics ready for you. But it's the third Saturday of every month is the Heather and Hen Show. It's the Heather and Hen Show. It's the Heather and Ken Show, and we'll talk about the topics that are important to you. We don't pull these out of our air. It's actually people that come to us and say, I want to know about this, I want to know about that. So we want to hear from you. We want to know what are you struggling with, what can we do to help, and we are doing it live. So if you do feel comfortable coming out, our space is open. We are social distancing to make you comfortable. You're welcome to come and watch the tapings live. If not, they are always posted for you. So without further ado, have a wonderful weekend. Is there anything else we need to add? I think we covered a lot.
We did cover a lot of ground. I think, in our talks, it's more about the practical approach and just kind of opening up a page for people to investigate versus just being extremely boring and
give permission.
It's
give permission.
Too much. But I think we covered a lot. If there's something else that you want us to, even on this subject that you're like, I heard X about fasting, is that valid?
Let me see if there's any comments. See if
happy
anyone
to
commented
dive
on
deep
anything.
some of those.
Oh, we've got a bunch of comments. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Kim. Hi, Nell. Good morning. Discussing two. Okay, cool. Yep. It looks like we covered all the. I've got 27 comments on here, and we covered every single answer to each of them. So we are doing really good. So without further ado, I'm going to say have a great weekend. Enjoy fall. We will see you on the third Saturday of November, which is what is the date for that? I have no idea. Hold on. We will look it up and tell you what the next one is. And we do not have a topic lined up yet unless someone reached out to you.
It's
The 21st. So November 21st, we will be doing another show. What do you think our topic should be? Do any of you have ideas on topics? Put them in the comments. Let us know.
Yeah.
And
I'm
post it.
feeling
What are
this.
you
I'm
feeling?
feeling this liver one.
Feeling liver?
I love the liver talk.
You know, there's a lot of information.
You
about
gotta love your liver.
Love your liver. Talk about beans. Talk about kidney relationships.
If you're trying to lose weight and you've been stacking for a long time, it could be your liver.
Or how about all the people that have tried to self-medicate with alcohol?
Your liver might get a piece of.
We might need to talk about that. So next month we'll be talking about liver and kidney health, and we'll see you then.
All right, take care.
Take care, guys.
Awesome.